You say yes to plans and then quietly hope they get canceled. Not because you hate people, but because the thought of being alone in your room feels like oxygen after holding your breath all day. And then you feel a little guilty for being relieved. If that sounds familiar, this video is about the psychology of people who like to be alone and why science says you're not broken, antisocial, or avoiding life. You're running on a completely different operating system. But here's what most videos on this topic won't tell you. Loving solitude can either be your greatest strength or your quietest trap. And in a few minutes, I'll give you a 20-second test to find out which one yours is becoming. Picture this. It's 11:37 p.m. on a Saturday. You're 22, scrolling through a group chat blowing up with photos from the party you skipped. Part of you feels a small pang of missing out, but the bigger part, quietly relieved that you're in bed with headphones on, no explanations, no performance. If that scene feels less like a confession and more like a Tuesday night, let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain. Most people feel safest when others are around. You feel safest when the door finally closes. That's not a flaw, that's a neurological signature. Psychologist Julie Bowker and her colleagues at the University at Buffalo have studied this for years. In a 2017 study in personality and individual differences, they found that people who prefer solitude often fall into a category called unsociability, which is completely different from shyness or avoidance. Unsociable people aren't scared of social situations, they just genuinely prefer their own company. And when researchers followed them over time, these individuals weren't more anxious than anyone else, and they still had healthy friendships. They were socially capable, just socially uninterested. The difference, research suggests their brains may process stimulation differently. Where most people need noise, movement, and interaction to feel engaged, you hit enough faster. A 2-hour gathering that energizes someone else might quietly drain you for days. It's not that you're weak, your system is simply more sensitive, like a microphone that picks up frequencies others don't even notice. But that's only half the story. Not everyone who spends time alone is doing it for the same reason. Psychologists usually separate solitude-seekers into 3 types. Unsociable, you prefer being alone because it feels good, not because people feel threatening. Shy, you want connection, but fear of judgment keeps you on the sidelines. Avoidant, you withdraw because past experiences taught you that closeness leads to pain. Here's what matters. A 2018 study published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin by researchers Nguyen, Weinstein, and Ryan, working from what's called self-determination theory, found that the reason you're alone matters more than the hours you spend alone. They called it the difference between autonomous solitude and controlled solitude. Autonomous solitude, time you choose freely to reflect or recharge, was linked to higher well-being and emotional stability. Controlled solitude, time you fall into from shame, pressure, or avoidance, was linked to worse moods and deeper loneliness. Same amount of alone time, completely different effect on your mind. So, which kind are you living? Let's find out. Try this with me right now. Think of the last time you spent an entire evening alone. Hold that memory. Now ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Did I choose this, or did I feel pushed into it by exhaustion, by avoiding something, by not having other options? 2. Afterward, did I feel calmer and more open to the world, or heavier and more closed off? 3. Did I avoid at least one small, safe connection I actually wanted? A text I didn't reply to, a call I let ring. If your answers are mostly chosen, calmer, no avoided connections, your solitude is working like a workshop, a place you enter to repair, to reflect, to come out clearer. But if your answers lean towards forced, heavier, avoided someone, your solitude may be drifting into something else, a bunker. and that difference matters more than you think. Think of your alone time as a private room in your mind. In a workshop, you go in to fix things, to sketch ideas, to let your nervous system settle after the noise of the world. When you leave, you feel a little more willing to re-enter life, maybe with a small plan or a small insight you didn't have before. The workshop restores you. A bunker is different. In a bunker, you go in to hide, not to recharge, to disappear. You stay longer than you planned. The thought of even small interactions starts to feel heavier, and over time, the world outside the door seems louder, more threatening, more exhausting than it actually is. The bunker doesn't restore you. It shrinks you. And here's the uncomfortable truth most solitude-positive content won't say. Researcher John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness. His work, along with other social neuroscientists, showed that the brain can process chronic isolation in some of the same regions as physical pain. Over time, long-term loneliness is linked to poorer immune function, worse sleep, and even higher risks for cardiovascular problems and earlier mortality. This doesn't mean you need to become an extrovert. It means your solitude needs a door that opens both ways. So, how do you make sure your workshop doesn't quietly become a bunker? Tool 1. The Solitude Audit. This week, try a simple experiment. Each evening, take 30 seconds to note how you spent your time in 3 columns: alone on purpose, alone by default, and with people. Next to each block, mark a plus sign if you left that time feeling clearer or more energized. Mark a minus sign if you left feeling numb, guilty, or more anxious. At the end of 7 days, look at the pattern. If most of your alone on purpose blocks are plus signs, your solitude is doing its job. But if alone by default plus minus signs are starting to dominate, that's your signal, not to panic, but to add one small low-pressure connection back into the next week. Tool 2. The 2-window rule. For every day you spend mostly alone, schedule 2 tiny windows of contact. Not hours, not draining hangouts, just small openings. A voice note to a friend, a 5-minute check-in with a family member, replying thoughtfully to one message instead of letting it sit for days. The rule isn't about being constantly available. It's about staying consistently reachable, in doses you control, so solitude doesn't slowly become disappearance. Try one of these tonight. Just one window. See how it feels in your body afterward. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Liking your own company is not a red flag. For a sensitive, thoughtful nervous system, it's basic emotional hygiene. But hiding in solitude while calling it self-care, that's just avoidance with better marketing. The goal isn't to stop loving your alone time. The goal is to make sure that time is a workshop you visit on purpose, and then leave a little clearer, a little more ready to meet the world in small, sustainable ways. You're not broken for needing quiet. You just need to make sure your quiet still has a door that opens. And if you want help with what happens after you open that door, like why crowds drain you so fast, watch the next video on screen. Same energy, different angle. I'll see you there.